Hi, everybody. I'm Corey. I'm the DM. I am here sitting with Group 2, and we are going to be doing a question and answering thing, kind of getting into their heads about their character, things that have happened in at the story, what's in their mind frame of the character, etc. And then, if there's time near the end, you guys can shoot shit questions about the world if you have any, just to kind of make up some time. So, who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Okay. Well, Rodeo, you're a number member. You play Aeson.
That's right.
Who is a noble fighter. And by this time, the viewers would have found out that you are the son of the High King of Graydon. Well, not the High King, but of the King of Graydon.
Shh! Don't tell anybody.
Oh yeah, totally.
The best kept secret everyone knows.
So I guess the biggest question, and this is going to be a question. A lot of these questions I'm going to reiterate to pretty much everybody to go through a couple of them. What do you find was your inspiration for your character?
So my character, I was looking for a fighter to play. Actually, I never played a fighter in 5th edition. That was my first thing I ever played in. I think it was 3.5. I played a fighter, and I wanted to get back to my roots. So I was looking through the book, and I got Xanathar's Guide because all the books were on sale on Amazon for like $20. So I ordered all the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual, the Player Handbook, and Xanathar's. And I saw the Cavalier class, and I was reading about it. I was like, that's really interesting. I like the dynamic of it. It says they're usually nobility, kind of like your typical knight in shining armor. You want to protect people. And I was like, that sounds really cool. And so I came up with this background story about a half-elf nobleman. It's evolved since his first inception to the point where it is now. I had a lot of help with our wonderful DM here to flesh out who he is now. And together we worked to make the interesting character I hope to portray for all of you people.
All right. Let's see. Question number 2. Were you initially designing your character, or like any other class, like multi-classing or like spell choices, that you thought your character would go, but you strayed away from as you were getting ready to actually start playing? So for you, it's going to be more, more closer to you beginning because you haven't had the time through the game. But when you were first building your character, were you thinking there was like a feat or something that you would do that you maybe strayed away from, or you just couldn't use?
So there's always the want to play human variant, so you could take a feat level 1. And for a frontline tank like Aeson, it was the tough feat. I've taken it in a different game where I played him. I love that feat. Just gives him a boatload more hit points. The problem is he is strictly a half elf in my mind. That's the only way to design him. It's who he is at his base. And so I went away with that. The other thing I was looking between was I was thinking about making this iteration a paladin because I very much enjoy playing paladins. I actually had another character that's a paladin in mind, but I decided to go with the fighter because I really like this character.
With that in mind, here's a quick question. No, of course, these aren't in any kind of order, and they're just going to flow randomly. But favorite character is basically something that everybody has. Somebody, maybe not so much that they like the person who's role-playing that character, but they like the concept of the character, they like where it's going, and want to see farther into that. Do you have a favorite in both Group 1 or Group 2?
Oh, that's a tough one. Maggie and Charity in Group 1 would be my favorites. I really like how their characters are. I like how they're growing. They're very interesting, and they seem a lot of fun. Group 2, it would probably be, from what I've listened to so far, I love Mila. She's just hilarious. Her shyness is endearing, but she's also a very powerful sorceress who gets stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times, especially when like the whole glowing and opening of the temple that has not been touched in God knows how long.
And let's not forget that level 5 magic missile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was amazing.
That was pretty cool. Even as like a DM, I was like, oh, alrighty then. That's what we're doing. So let's see. Is there who is your favorite NPC as of yet? Maybe ones that you've met or you've heard on the podcast. And if you got to interact with them, how would you hope it would go?
Does it have to be specifically from the podcast?
No, I guess not. No.
So my favorite NPC that I've met so far would have to be Tristan.
Oh, okay.
He's absolutely wonderful. I just love every bit of him. He's such a cool character. And if Aeson were to meet him and interact with him, I think it would be interesting considering, the whole, I don't want to spoil anything there, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of things going into the background, and I don't believe, because you've had the wonderfulness of going through tryouts. You guys, you've met Tristan from another game that I've ran before a long while ago, and but nobody here has met Tristan, so that's an NPC that is kind of not in the fold yet.
I've met Tristan.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Blue knows Tristan as well. Tangled, I believe you ran into him as well.
Yeah, he was in the audition game.
Yeah, and if nobody's heard from Nicole, unfortunately Nicole is not with us today because she's not feeling well. But we hope she feels better, and she's actually asked a couple questions. So we will get to those.
Yes, feel better, Nicole.
Yes, feel better.
Absolutely, feel better.
Don't die.
That too.
Okay. Let's see here. How much growth do you feel your character has made over, the episode so far? So we're going to go ahead and skip that one, probably because you've only had like an episode or so. Another one, which probably wouldn't, be for you. It's like, where would you visit someplace that you've been before? So we've got a couple more. Is there an aspect of yourself in the player that tends to come out while you're playing in the game? Do you like or dislike it?
Yeah, as much as I hate to admit it, there's an aspect of myself that comes out. And it's that I tend to pretty much exclusively play lawful good characters. And it's because, I went to school for criminal justice. I used to want to be a police officer. I have a tattoo of the scales of justice on my leg. I'm all about justice and law and the whole lawful good characters. It just makes it so much easier for me to roleplay them.
Oh, if only Nicole was here. The scales of justice.
Time
Let's
to
see
tip
here.
the scales.
Yeah, they are kind of tipped a little bit right now. At least I would say.
Oof.
Yeah. Let's see here. So what events in your character's backstory has, and share as much as you like, share as less as you like. But what do you think has driven your character, even if it's just emotion, to the point that they're at right now?
So with Aeson, he's always been, he's not the eldest son of his family. So that's a big driving motivation. He wants to impress his father just as much as his older brother does. And in a noble family, that's often quite hard to do. However, he has a wonderful father who realizes that quite possibly the nobility shouldn't be based on bloodline, but on your merit. So that was something he told Aeson, and Aeson decided to take that to heart, and that's kind of put him where he's at now. He always got along with pretty much everyone. He could get along with the simple folk up to the court nobility, and he wanted to go out and protect the regular people out there and help make Talalia a safer continent.
Okay. Is there, a big aspiration? Maybe not something that it's not like a major goal, but is there something that he's wishing to obtain, maybe for himself, for others around him, something that he's working towards?
Yeah, I'd say he wants to, like I said, he wants to protect the common folk. He wants to, kind of make himself out to be somebody who could be counted on by the common folk, somebody that they can look to when they need help.
All right. What class or subclass, and this one is generally to you, not even the player, have you never played but have been interested in?
I was talking with another DM of mine about this last night. Actually, we were talking about interesting classes, and I've never played a warlock, but I also really would like to play a hexblade warlock. They seem very interesting.
Yeah.
I've played with a couple. They do have some pretty cool, interesting things that kind of build them with. Let's see. How does dealing with being a low-level character, since you guys are still at what, level 2?
3.
Three.
Three now. How does that affect how you process things or how you would play?
Absolutely. You got to be more careful when you're a low level character. You can't just charge into every fight knowing you're going to be fine, or, at least pretty sure you'll be okay. You really got to weigh the odds. You got to make sure you don't just blindly go into things. I mean, eventually, maybe you have enough hit points to tank a trap or a surprise attack, but right now you don't. And I think this group might have found that out the hard way.
Okay. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and do 2 more questions, and we'll move on to another member. That way, everybody's got a couple moments to really go through these questions, and we get to hear from everybody. If you had to stick with a race or a class for the rest of your life when playing D&D, what would you stick with?
I would stick with half elf for my race. I like them because I feel they're very versatile. They're interesting to me. For some reason, I always get irked about humans not living for that long, and a lot of the other races too. I like the longevity of the race because I get attached to my characters. At least so if they die of natural causes, it'll be at an older age. And class, if I had to pick, it would be a tough one between fighter and paladin because they're both right up my alley, but probably fighter.
Okay. And last question. If put to the choice, would you choose a course of action that would get your character killed if it matched your character's thoughts and ambitions, or would you hold your character back?
I would absolutely take that choice if it matched my character's thoughts and ambitions. And I have an example of that with Aeson, different game, but it was an Aeson nonetheless, if you'd like to hear.
Sure.
So he was with the party, and they had taken custody over this young girl that was found in a prison. And this very, very powerful witch wanted her because she had magical powers. And she tricked the party into bringing her to her temple. And when they're there, they realize something's wrong. The paladin comes out and says, take the girl and run. But right then she summons a stone wall around the carriage that they're in all the way to the temple. And he could have just given up the girl, but that's not his MO. So instead, he turned and did an athletics check to burst through the stone wall. And he did. He successfully got through with a 25. And then he kept going, taking multiple shots from both the high-level wizard and the little girl, who turned out was a high-level wizard as well, or sorceress. He was taking thunder waves from the front and maintaining his grapple on her while taking sunbeams from the back until he finally passed out. Death save, he rolled a nat 20, got up, and got between his party member who had taken the girl and the wizard again with a 1 hit point. They managed to escape, but he was very, very ready to sacrifice himself to save this little girl because that's what he would do.
Yeah.
And I was willing to have him to do it.
So badass.
I think we've all pretty much, and this is just me, we all know that, when we're doing this podcast, that it's also like telling a story. So being true to the character is like the utmost thing. Yeah, sometimes we weigh some options a little bit, but it's not options that our character wouldn't already have weighed themselves. So
Yeah.
I think that in the long run, I think that's probably going to be what we're going to hear from most of the night from our players.
Yeah, like giving the girl back wasn't even an option. Like it was a game option, but it wasn't a character option. That wasn't on the list of anything. It was either stay and fight this wizard or run.
Yeah.
And with how high level this wizard was, running seemed to be the right thing.
Okay. Well, let's see. Blue, Sam, and Tangled. If you guys would pick a number between 1 and 3 for me, assign yourselves, and I will roll a d3, and we'll go with whoever's next.
Choose 4. No, I'll choose 1.
You
2.
were 2. All right.
Let's go 1.
All right, Blue. That makes you 3.
Okay.
Are we all ready? That is a 3. Blue, you were up.
Well, okay. I guess it is that after I said 4, then 1. That's fine. All right.
Okay, so we're going to start with the same first question. Where do you find your character's inspiration?
Honestly, I find a lot of inspiration through different types of media. Just a lot of anime, to be completely honest. Honestly, I find a lot of inspiration through friends of mine as well. Just through ideas they give and just certain things that we joke around about, and just little fragments of things that come from other people that I, will form an idea of.
Okay. Question number 2. When you were initially designing your character, were there any paths, multi-classing, or spell choices, or subclass that you thought you'd take your character to, or maybe you strayed away from near the end, or maybe it was a rule choice? You can go ahead and throw me under the bus. I know I'm particular with my rules.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I know I am. I'm particular.
Well, like initially when designing my character, not really. I spent so long on designing my character, so I must have went through the whole list, of course. But when I was hard set on it, when I submitted my character, it was kind of really stuck in there of what I was wanting to do with him for Zachariah. But of course, there was the moment that you talked about where previously I had talked about multi-classing earlier, but have not had the chance to do that yet because it has to be story implemented, which is fine. I've played with a couple of DMs like that before. It just it took me by surprise.
I'm sorry.
Nah.
I normally try to give that kind of information up front, but there are just some that I don't think of until it's the last moment.
That's fine.
Which is why I've actually started doing the whole. I have a list of alternative rules that if we start another group or we get another member, I can just send this to them, and it goes over the spell list that we can't really learn when leveling. And it's not that they don't exist; they're high powered, so you find them on scrolls and whatnot. But there's things like on this spell, it's they do exist, but because I think they're a lot more special in game when things that are on this list are found on a scroll.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know that you have the ability that once these scrolls are found, you can copy them into your spell book. 1 second, I'm about to sneeze.
Bless you.
Bless
No,
you.
it still happens.
Bless you.
It still happens.
Bless
There
you.
you go. Wait, 3rd times?
What?
There
There
we
we
go.
go.
Oh,
Bless you.
Wow.
Oh my
Bless
god.
you. Oh.
I told you, man. I don't
Wait,
sneeze 3. I don't just sneeze 3 times.
we just
That
stop
was like-
pouring pepper.
5 time.
That's
Um,
Pepper in that tuna casserole.
Oh god.
So in this, there's like things like animate dead, raise dead, and that's not to say that we don't have necromancers in the world. And of course, if you're starting with a necromancer character, there are going to be times where some of these things on the list, especially when building characters, they might be available that we would have discussed when building characters. Of course, I know there were some things like resurrection, true resurrection. I wanted things to feel final when people die.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
No, that's understandable.
And,
Can I
at the
actually
same-
suggest one?
Sure.
Conjure woodland beings.
Conjure
Because I don't see that on here. Because of there's one
Yes,
thing.
Conjure Fey.
Yeah.
Is it is
Yeah,
there on there?
I have
Conjure-
Conjure Fey.
Conjure Fey is like
It's
can be
just
really
under remove
spell.
curse.
I
Above
must be
finger of
blind.
death.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so there's things like Conjure Celestial, Revivify, Resurrection, True Res, Remove Curse. I want it to feel like when you guys get cursed. Now these are all also labeled between common and legendary scrolls that you could find in the world.
Mm.
So even some that are on here might be easier than most to find.
These are like a lot of like 9th level spells, pretty much. So
Yeah. And by the time you guys get there, you guys are already going to have ridiculous kind of spells that you guys might not even need to lean on some of these.
Oh yeah.
So like Power Word Kill was one of them. It's pretty strong. True Polymorph, pretty strong. Mordekaiser's Faithful Hound, Private Sanctum, Magnificent Mansion. I feel like he was a person in the world that if you wanted to learn these, you had to specifically learn them from him. Or find somebody who learned them from him, or maybe a scroll that he himself has written. So because they come with his name, I feel like that should be something special.
Interesting.
Should you also apply that to Liamon's tiny hut then?
Yes, that should be in there. I do have his secret chest, which is just above Mordekaiser's, so I will add that one in there.
I was tempted on taking that one, so never. Thank God I didn't take it.
Just random question, Corey, because I see you have teleportation circle on here, but not teleports. Any reason for that? Just wondering.
Teleport. I mean, not really. I didn't want to ban them both. Teleportation circle 1, it would make more sense if you find it on a scroll 1 because the preparation has already been done. Teleportation circle, I believe there's like a shit ton of stuff that comes with it. Let me just look it up here.
Yeah, you have to do it for like a year to make an actual
teleportation
circle.
Yeah, so like this, once you find it in a scroll, in my world, basically, you just use it once and wherever you use it. So it makes more sense to make it on a scroll and then be able to apply it where you want it, which would make it more common to find it on a scroll in my world than as a spell. Because with teleportation circle for 5e, like he said, it's you've got to cast this. As you cast the spell, you draw a 10-foot diameter of circle, sigils linking location, sequence, same plane of existence as you. Shimmering portal opens with the circle, 5 feet destination. So, because the way I understand it too is you have to do this over a certain amount of time for it to actually particularly stay in that area. You can create a permanent teleportation circle by casting the spell in the same location every day for 1 year. With a scroll, it's literally just a scroll.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more high powered. Like the time stop scroll, it could be particularly more powerful on a scroll than it could be if you learned the spell. So that's why you kind of have to weigh your options between, do I use the scroll, which could potentially be more powerful, or do I learn the spell and use it when I want, but know that it might not be as clutch as it would be on that scroll?
Okay.
Sorry, we ran off topic here. This is about blue.
Yes, it's about me. Hi.
I mean, at least get a little more about the world at the same time. So, hey, bonus.
Hey,
That's
that's
bonus. Awesome. Sorry, blue.
Nah, that's fine.
All right. Let's go with the next question. Is there a particular character from both Group 1 and Group 2 that you find yourself really enjoying and want to see more of?
Honestly, and as bad as it sounds, I find myself very fascinated with a couple of people. I'd say mainly 2 people, both from Group 2. The one that sounds really bad is I'm kind of excited to see what happens with Zachariah, because even I don't know. As bad as it really sounds, it's very self-centered. Just like, hey, me, but no.
I mean, we all have those characters where we want to see more. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that, and honestly, at the same time as well, I've really liked Mila's character as well. Just a very interesting bits of information that we've gotten, and I'm very interested to see where wild magic takes place from in this world. it's always been a very much a point of fascination for me with how certain DMs handle it with like where does it come from, where does it go, you know.
Where does it come from? Nah, joke.
I was trying to restrain from that.
You to it.
I wasn't gonna say it. But I'm happy someone-
I had to.
Just set it up, man.
Oh, sorry.
my players were mad at me yesterday because I kept saying you're going to head downtown walking fast a lot in this session.
Faces passing a homebound.
I say that all the time to my players, and yeah, they I think get annoyed at me too.
A bit of small information. I had a clip of music that I was caught singing because I had left one of the recordings of Group 2's games up and running for like 48 hours.
Oh God.
And so it caught me like using YouTube, it caught me playing video games, it caught me doing a lot of crap. And one of them was I listened to this song on YouTube, and it wasn't necessarily a rock song, but I'm sitting here singing to it and getting into it like I actually think I shared that with Rody.
You did. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic.
Well, I would like to see that particular part of the clip, not anything else from there, just in case.
More
I'll
stuff
have to
for the
see.
bloopers.
48 hours is a long time from a computer standpoint.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
That computer's seen some things.
Let's see here. All right, same question, but for like NPCs. Some that you may have run into, some that you haven't, but would like to. Maybe somebody from Group 1, Group 2, or somebody that you know in my world that exists.
Honestly, I've been liking Cole a lot, to be honest, because I am very much a sucker for little crumbs of details, and Cole very much kind of puts that off with what we've been picking up. And because for as much as he's told us, it still feels like a crumb of detail to me. So it feels like there's much more to him that we haven't heard, and that interests me a lot.
Yeah, there was, especially we did on Patreon too, that was mostly about some of his backstory, which give a little bit more detail, but there's still some spicy bits to learn throughout the story.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I've shared that with you, but if I haven't, I could share that with you if you like. Unless you want to learn, kind of more through story mode through game.
Either or, I'll decide if I get the link.
Okay. How much growth do you feel your character's made over the many episodes that he's played so far?
Honestly, I feel like Zachariah has not grown at all. He's actually taken steps backwards a little bit with some of the things that's been happening, because he's been a well-established traveler for many years. And then in one expedition, one trip, things have went wildly wrong. So it's weighed very heavily on him for how things have happened, and just put him back onto a mindset of, with everything that's happened, how has he really survived for so long? Really?
Yeah. Because I mean, you guys have lost 2 members now. Somebody went missing for a night. And of course, at this point, Group 2 is just in a really bad way as far as their headcanon and stuff.
It's a miracle he survived a foreign country.
Let's see here. If your character would return to visit somewhere, or could go somewhere in the world, I'm going to even expand this. If your character could go somewhere, or would like to revisit someplace in Talalia or any of the other continents, where do you think they would want to go?
This is it feels like a kind of a bad answer, but just with his character, everywhere. I mean, because that's his main goal in life. He wants to kind of really go everywhere. He wants to hear everything, learning is the treat on his own.
Yeah, that is not a bad answer. I mean,
I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's see here. Let's let's see here. Is there an aspect of you that comes out through Zachariah that maybe you don't like, or maybe you do like?
Well, of course, I fervently believe that every character that you make, whether you believe it or not, whether in the beginning or later on, it's going to take on a part of you, but then break off from that part of you to just to express parts of yourself that you really haven't ever found before. Zachariah, for me personally, I tend to find that he has picked up a bit of my comedy that necessarily wasn't intended for Zachariah in the very beginning. And it's very early to tell because it usually takes a good long time before you really see that split from yourself from there. But yeah, I consider myself close to all my characters, Zachariah included.
Okay. Is there a moment while playing any tabletop games or experience that you really enjoyed over your times of playing D&D or any other tabletop game?
Oh, of course. I mean, I have vast amounts of stories of success, failure, death, surprisingly of new life. Of both ends of that. I've seen a lot through my D&D career over the past 3 years, and it's been a blast and everything. My favorite moment being one of my DMs just breaking one of my characters to make him fall in love because, and not in a way that you'd expect, because he has been a very duty-bound character that he has been searching for kids that he had found that he had had without him knowing, and now it's years later, so he's went out to go try to take responsibility, and then in the very first moment, going from it for more of a I need to do this to a I want to do this as he meets this child and falls in love immediately.
Okay. Let's see. What events in your character's backstory led them or would have led them to where they're at now in the game? Or, you can share as much as you want, share as little as you want, because, this is still an ongoing story, of course.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. What events in your character's backstory or anything like that, maybe feelings or something that has led them to the moment where they're at right now in game?
Well, Zachariah's events are very, very finely made to where he is mainly back where he is today because of the death of a man that he very much admired, the death of his grandfather, which put him back to where he was, to where he went and mourned the loss of him, just to pick up again on the road and start out on the journey that he started the last time he left and talked with his grandfather, to where he then met the group that he started traveling with. Oh, so while a bad event happened, it started all of this. So kind of through tragedy, the future happens. Best way to put it.
Okay. Now here's a question, and we kind of touched on it as well with, the places you would like to visit. Because you said he would like to go pretty much everywhere. What is your basic character's aspirations? What drives your character?
Honestly, the unknown, really. My character is really driven by just taking the things that in mass is not really known, but yet is very well known within small groups, like little tribal stories that you would hear that they tell their children all the time, but these people don't know. Just absorbing all these stories, all these things, and just learning has been very, very much aspiration from him because of, like I said before, his inspiration with his grandfather and his travels really inspired him to travel on his own as well.
Okay. Is there one class or subclass that you've never played but have always been interested in?
Oh yeah, there's a lot that I haven't played yet. The most interesting so far, I've been really wanting to play, is a character that I've made years ago, as it feels now. He is Tobian Rockefeller. He is a divination wizard. Because I always kind of give my characters a title. I always called him the boy who broke time. It's just a character with the whole mindset of seeing into people's futures and seeing the threads of fate and all that. It's kind of a character I wanted to play, but just haven't got a chance to yet, because I find myself very much a role filler as a player. That I generally take the roles that other people don't play or want for a party composition.
Okay. With your character being, level 3, does this kind of affect your process of how your character thinks or anything?
Honestly, somewhat. I try to weigh it a little bit with the not so much the metagame knowledge of like what can my character do but actually just like spell wise and just him knowing his limitations, but also pushing that a little bit with the backstory written. It's a very fine balance I try to put onto it of just what my character feels like he can do, and then also of my own mindset of what do I know he can actually do, and that sometimes massively doesn't match up. This time it seems to match up very well for Zachariah. He seems to be very reserved in knowing what he can and cannot do.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I lost my place in the questions here. If you had to stick with a singular race or class for the rest of your life when playing D&D, do you know what that would be?
Oh yeah, I've had this mindset for a while because I've looked through the characters and I've thought about this a couple of times. There's just a character I always go back to because he seems like always like a nice medium. I would generally always go back to a character that I made called Nick Knock. He would be a goblin artificer to go a little bit homebrew. It's just the niceness of being able to, match that balance of, magic, making stuff, helping people, doing big stuff. And just personality wise, I can be completely serious if I want, lash out at people in a in character way, because Nick Knock was not always the nicest character, being a pretty much a scientist goblin, but also at other times just being able to be comedic relief very easily.
Okay. And last question.
Mhm.
If put to the choice, would you choose a course of action that would get your character potentially killed, or if it as long as it like matched the character's thoughts or ambitions, or would you like hold your character back from that moment?
Honestly, going against what Rodius say, I'm actually more of a maybe character because I find myself a lot of times, thinking massively into character, but there's just certain moments of non-compromise that I always find myself in. It doesn't really matter the type of character I play, and it's not something I actively try to go out and do. It's just one of those things that just crops up. Like, I find that generally my characters, no matter if I'm playing good, evil, what be it, I find it to be very self-sacrificing for party members mainly. Whereas it might not always be in my character's greatest, mindset or what they would do. As for certain things relating to, direct ambitions of, chasing after something, that a goal that I know will get them killed, most likely. Again, I would, like you said, I would generally weigh it, like the character would weigh it. And it just depends on the link I have with my character. Sometimes it feels a little harder and I can't really let go, to be honest. But sometimes, yeah, I toss in the hat and give the character what they want.
Okay. Well, that is all the questions. Sorry. That we have. Let's go ahead and see. Tangled, you were 2. Sam, you were 1.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, let's roll this. Well, let's flip a coin, shall we?
Also, if you don't mind me interjecting, can I ask you a question, Corey?
Me?
I'm in
Yeah.
favor for this.
Ooh, yes.
Okay. If nobody else has a problem.
Nope.
I'm all right with
Okay.
it.
Shoot.
So, for a lot of the listeners and me too, especially, do you have any advice for people aspiring to become a better DM?
Listen to the characters. Listen to the players. If you're going to be building something, it depends what they like. Some players like railroading. Some players like that they have that strict track which keeps them on track and tells them the story. They don't like a lot of fluff around them because then they get overwhelmed. But then again, if they're a group of people who enjoy the little tidbits here and the tidbits here that you can lay around, that's also a good way to go. The best tip for being a good DM for a group is knowing what your group likes and working with it. Because if you have this big ambition to build such a great world and to put so much stuff into it, and you hope and pray for the players to come and find this one little tidbit lever off in the corner underneath some scratch paper or something, and then they never find it, then you're left upset because you had so much planned. But when you play something that they like, that they enjoy, and that this is working for them, you also find that you enjoy that just as much because you see the enjoyment that they get from it, even if it's not completely enormously elaborate.
It's really really good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with, we got a 2 here, so it looks like we're with Tangled now.
Okay.
Ooh. All right. So
What's that about?
I don't know.
what the ooh? I'm just sipping a little bit of ginger ale and vodka. Just sipping it. I like the taste.
Just sipping.
Just jealous
sipping.
right now.
I've only had 1 glass of wine tonight.
I've only had
gonna
one
crack
bottle of
open-
wine.
I'm gonna crack open a Reds.
Oh God, I wish I had more alcohol.
Anybody
So it seems
listening, this has now become a 21 and up chat. Please show us your IDs.
It seems like, again, I'm the designated driver. Because I don't drink.
So Tangled.
Yeah.
Where do you find your character's inspiration?
Pretty much it's been said before, but like within me, like I like to bring a lot of myself into my characters. Particularly with Mila. Just the I will be really honest, I have a lot of issues with anxiety and depression. So that kind of transfers over into Mila with her nervousness and everything. And yeah, I always like adding that little aspect into my characters because to me it shows them like, okay, they're a bit more real and everything. And also like through media as well, various different like video games, movies, animes. Like I've always kind of like if I like a character, I will like pick little pieces out and kind of make that into my characters that I play. So yeah, a little bit of me, a little bit of characters I like in media.
Okay. It's a good thing I was muted too. The bird clock went off.
It is 9:00, so
It is. Yeah.
It's
I
working
finally
now.
fixed it.
It's not an episode unless the bird
The thing is though is it is really like even with new batteries it's starting to die. Some of the
Oh,
birds are starting to
no.
sound distorted.
Oh, bird clock, no.
Yeah.
Get you a new one for Christmas.
I will send you a link. I found it and I've considered maybe spending some money.
Well, that took a complete 180. I thought I was about to hear a no.
When you were initially designing your character,
Mhm.
were there any paths, multi-classing, spell choice, or subclasses that you thought your character would maybe go that you strayed away from because of either story, world? Again, don't worry about throwing me under the bus.
No, it's fine. There's really I've been thinking about this before. Like, there's really no multi-class I see for Mila. I just always picture her like going straight like to sorcerer. There's really like no other magic path that I can see her going. She's just so interested in learning, how to control her magic and how to become better at magic. So she's pretty much just gonna go straight sorcerer, up until whenever we stop.
Wow. We have to get through arc 1, and then we might see a change in groups maybe.
Ooh.
If we get there. Once we get through the basic storyline, which I'm going to call it arc 1, there might be another arc after that to continue the story, and we might draw up new characters and advance the timeline a little bit.
So he's killing us. Got it.
So, number 3, what or who is one of your more interesting characters that you enjoy from group 1 or group 2?
Okay. This is hard because I love so many characters. I love all the characters in Group 1. They're all really just so great, and they're dynamic together as well. Work so well together. But before I answer this question,
If you only knew.
Oh no.
No, I'm just like it does, but like, oh my god, it's not easy.
No, I would imagine. I mean, I do love Charity. I think she's such like a level-headed character, like, and kind of like calms the chaos that the group brings. Also, I love Sebastian. He's such a asshole jerk, and I love that. I love that character. So yeah, that's probably my 2 favorites of Group 1. Group 2 is even harder because I record with you guys, and I know you guys like. I have absolutely no idea. I don't think I can answer this. I feel
That's fine if you can't.
Oh, I love all you guys. That's it. Yeah.
That's just because you're the favorite.
No, it's not.
Conflict of interest.
She just couldn't say
No.
herself.
Should I just say, yeah, I love Mila. She's amazing.
I am the best there is.
That's
I
3
know,
Milas. It's going to be,
no.
everyone's going to say Mila.
No. I I seriously love everyone. I think everyone has such a really interesting thing they bring to the group. And I'm really looking forward to playing with, Brodio and Sam more to see how they interweave with their characters. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Is there a favorite NPC that you have either interacted or haven't interacted with yet in general that you just really enjoy?
Yeah, I absolutely love Cole. Just finding out, I really want to find out more about him. Just just what makes him him. He's really just such a fascinating NPC. And Group 1 met him, but Everett as well, the werewolf. I actually have been thinking, like, what if Mila has met him? Like, they can bond over, like, their powers that get a little bit out of control sometimes. Get a little crazy. He's also just another fascinating character that I hope Group 2 can meet in the future.
Okay. How much growth do you feel your character has made over the episodes that you've been in?
A lot, I think. Like starting from like this, quiet, shy. She's so quiet and shy, let's face it, but like she's definitely is trying to improve. Like, and I think with all the like all the events that have happened recently, I think she's learning more about the world and learning, that there's like life is scary and this is the what she it's hard to explain. Sorry, let me like
I mean, we have seen some growth.
Yeah.
She herself is already trying to stop all the sorries, and we see her
Yeah.
struggling with that.
Yeah, she's definitely trying to stop that, and I think after Eric died, I think she is now like, okay, I can't just sit here and sit here and just cry the entire time. Like, she got up and she just continued going. And I think after the first Farian's death, I think she was a little bit more broken, but that she was also going through a lot of stuff. Like, she disappeared like for a night, and she was lost, and so yeah, it's a very jumbled way in my head, but she's definitely growing as a character, or at least trying to.
Okay. If your character could return or visit somewhere in the world, Talalia or another continent, where do you think that would be?
I'm gonna steal Blue's answer and say everywhere. But there's one place she does not want to return to, and that is back to her home. She is absolutely
Where is that by chance?
Neveska, right? That's the Elven city.
Yep.
Yeah, she would not. One, I don't think she can return there. Two, she doesn't want to. She has absolutely no desire to go back to the life in her room. Like, she enjoys, being
Freedom.
She enjoys freedom. Yeah, everywhere but here, pretty much. Yeah.
Is there an aspect of yourself that tends to come out when you play your character that you either like or dislike?
Yeah, I explained a little bit about my whole anxiety issues and depression issues. That leads into my I do constantly apologize as well. Or at least I've stopped in the past months. But that has fed into Mila a bit. So, and I don't I personally hate my apologizing. So I understand what everyone else around her is going through when she's like, I'm sorry, like all that. And so yeah, that's definitely one big aspect I bring to Mila is my constant apologizing. I just did a thumbs up. No one can see it.
It's what makes her so
Aw.
endearing, though.
Yeah, true. It brings some depth.
Don't worry, the
Just wanna
FBI saw that.
I just want to hug her.
If there was a moment in your time of playing tabletop games that you've experienced that you really enjoy, what would you say that would have been?
Oh God, I think I'm not sure because I've been playing about a year and a half now. And I just have so many stories just from various games. That's have just been so cool and amazing stories. I can't think of just one in particular. The first one, just because it happened recently, the first one I had is actually probably my home game that I DM for a few of my friends. One of the characters, he gave me his backstory that he came from a village, and his mother died of unknown circumstances, and trauma basically kind of wiped his memory. And I kind of made this whole thing that he had this half brother, and the half brother had something to do with his backstory, but the player was not sure. And then it was revealed that the half brother ended up killing his mother in a very kind of weird, magical way. And I saw the player kind of wrestle with this whole thing, hey, this is my brother, but he killed my mother, and just trying to figure out what to do. And that's I thought was really just interesting watching the character struggle through that. And I love throwing my players stuff like that at my players because I love I love torturing them as a DM. I'm one of those evil DMs.
That's cruel and beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
Jen.
you guys have made some really elaborate backstories, and I love being able to incorporate those into the world. With Mila, with Aeson, with Zachariah, and of course, Lynn. These are all like really, and that's not even to mention Group 1, 2, and we've got Maggie's backstory, which is a lot more complicated than we've seen so far.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. And I'm worried about how the hell I'm going to do mine.
Oh no.
Do not worry.
The
We
worst
will-
thing is,
I always worry.
Have
Lynn is such an interesting character, though.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't gotten enough FaceTime yet.
I know.
We're brand new, and there's going to be a lot that goes on between Lynn and the rest of the party and everyone else.
Oh, dear.
The truth is too is you also have a lot of faith, and this is for players. When it comes to a D&D game and you really like your backstory, it's good to write up a page or so. But here's a little bit of a tip, and you can disregard this or not. But if there's something that you really want to see in the game, if something you don't want it scripted, but you're like, hey, I want this. Don't be afraid to go to your DM and go, hey, look, that section here? Could you incorporate that in some way? And 90% of the DMs, if they're good, will go, yes, we can do that. We're going to make this happen. And I think that's something I like to do for each and every one of you guys. If there's a moment or something in your background that you want touched on, do not, for any reason, feel afraid to come to me.
I watched it torture Mila.
Be careful what you wish for, though.
well, it looks like we're getting that expansion of the D&D 5e supplement of the book.
No, okay, that was a weird way to say it.
I mean,
There is a character named Agatha that was playing in a game long before we started recording that was Maggie's character, or sorry, not Maggie, Red's character. She embodies Maggie so much, I get them confused. But she loved this character, and she wrote this wonderful backstory. And I don't want to say anything in case she becomes an NPC and you guys end up meeting her. But she was like, torment her. And I was like, done. I think I almost drove her to tears in 2 games.
You've already made me cry, so
I'm sorry. Like, I
No,
love
it's
it, but
fine.
at the same time, I hate it.
it's fine.
I love DMs like that. The DM I told you I was talking to last night told me he had everybody in our campaign roll a few D6s just through Facebook Messenger. He's like, everybody roll me some D6s. And then he messages me, is like, yeah, I just had your girlfriend roll for how her warlock patron feels about her. This is going to be fun. And I'm like,
oh my god, no.
I'm like, this is going to be excellent because this is like her first campaign ever of D&D.
Oh no.
Well,
This is interesting because I know every fucking DM thinks of patrons completely differently. There's not one DM that thinks of patrons the same way as another.
Oh, she's a Cthulhu patron too, a great old one.
Boom.
She's gonna get choked by the tentacles, and we're back to that thinking again.
Oh god,
Oh,
no.
right. Moving on to the next question. I'm gonna kind of scooch over that one because that gives off a little bit too much about your character. So
Okay.
I'm gonna hold off on that question.
Mhm.
If Group 2 crosses paths with Group 1, is there a character you could see yours getting along with best, which we kind of touched on? Or is there like one that you would really be interested in just meeting?
I think she would get along really well with Maggie. Just the whole noble aspect, growing up being sheltered. I think they can relate to each other a lot that way. I think she also will get just along well with Charity as well. Again, that just had that calming, soothing nature. I think those 2 are the ones that she would probably click with the best. Out of all of them, I think.
Does she have any large aspirations or motives that you would be wanting to share? And remember, you can hold as much or tell as much as you like.
She just wants to find out more about the magic in the world. And it's her biggest like goal, I think, is just to find out everything about the magic in this whole world. And in hopes of that to kind of somehow learn to control her wild magic as well. That's her pretty much biggest goal right now. And also to just learn more about herself and to grow more as a person and not as this elven noble that was stuck in her like house for many, many years.
All right. Is there a level in which being a low-level character affects the process of your character's thinkings, or as a player playing a low-level character?
Yeah, very much so. Because the amount of spell slots that like I have is not a lot, and
let's face it, I am stingy with levels too.
no, it's fine. And it's so hard to thinking like, okay, like I know we are going to be doing this, like, so do I want to waste, like a spell slot, or like now that we're at level now that I have level 2 spell slots, like, okay, am I going to be really stingy with those, and like just how much I have to use? I think I think a good example is in the fight with the clockwork monster. I think at one point wavering, like, okay, should I try a firebolt, which is a cantrip, or should I try magic missile, which I know will hit? Yeah,
as
I
a
know.
player, I say swear by magic.
Yeah, that's, and I think I went with like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go with magic missile because I know it's gonna hit. And I do have my sorcery points that I can always like get my spell slots back. So,
and let's face it, magic missile is kind of like your to-go spell now with the level 5 hit that you dealt.
I think it is. I think that's like her spell now. It's funny. I found a song called "M is her magic missile," and I'm like, that's kind of now Mila's song.
There's more to. How do I put this? Because I want to give you a hint.
No,
there's more to all of everything that's happened to her that even you as a player do not know.
Oh God, I'm scared and intrigued.
I'm interested to see how this is going to go. I've written a little bit of something for each and every one of you, so I'm excited to see that go down.
Yeah. Well, then again, I did tell you to just torment Mila, so
yeah. If you per se had to stick with a race or a class for the rest of your life while playing D&D, what do you think that would be?
This is hard because race, I think, yeah, I'm gonna go with half elf. Because I think it has more versatile options. Class, oh, I have absolutely no idea. I want to say rogue, just because I think rogues get like so much cool stuff. Rogues are paladins. Both of them get like really awesome stuff like later on. And I think, yeah, if I have to stick with one of those classes, yeah, definitely that. I'm also getting to more warlocks as well, and that's cool. All the classes are cool. That's the problem, but I'm gonna shut up before.
You might as well go with a changeling then.
Yeah, maybe.
But then again, you could. There's an easy way to kind of also break this question just a little bit. You could multi-class and pretty much whatever you could, and
I multi-class and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
okay.
I've seen that done. It's amazing.
Do not bring up Sarah.
I'm triple classing in the game right now. It's the worst thing ever, sadly, but I love it. Triple classing.
Oops, sorry.
No, so I was just gonna say I'm triple classing in Ranger, Rogue, and Cleric.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Am I the only one that has an issue with Ranger? I'm sorry.
I don't like Ranger very much, and I don't let that be a bias. I really don't.
It's okay. it's one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't feel like playing a ranger anymore. I'm going to multi-class and other things because rangers don't get a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's like what they do get is like so limited depending on the campaign. I'm sorry, I have to take you to a tangent.
No, it's okay.
You wanna burst, be a fighter paladin rogue multi-class, a holy assassin.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. A rogue paladin's extremely good.
Yeah, that
Ooh.
divine smite with the sneak attack on a crit. That's too many dice to count.
I was just thinking all that dice. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody with my absurd rules of how I like to play things ever did that, and literally did that with storyline, like they ran into, being an orphan and they started out as a rogue, and then they were just like, no, I like this god, I want to do things. I would be really interested in that mix.
Rogue paladin. It's
Yeah.
like a holy assassin. You do God's work behind the scenes.
God's plan.
So, last question, Tangled.
Yes.
If put to the choice, would you choose a course of action that would get your character potentially killed, if it matched your character's thoughts and ambition, or would you hold back?
I've been thinking about this since you asked everyone else, and I don't know. I think it depends on the circumstance. Because Mila is afraid of death. As everyone is pretty much. But like she doesn't want to die. She wants to see more of the world. But if somehow it will help or do something, I'm not sure. So I'm just gonna say maybe on that as well. That's a tough question. Not sure.
And that leaves Sam.
Oh dear.
That voice, man. Do you use a voice changer?
No, that's natural voice.
I gotta give you props.
I've seen a good couple of people.
It's amazing.
Thank you. It's part of a thing I was working on for a long time, and I especially love doing strong female characters. So I like to get into the mindset by doing their voices. So I've gotten practice with that. So yeah.
Well, I do perceive that if we did get a backing, there are always those rude people. But I don't think I would assume that even they would be impressed with this. I mean,
I will fight them.
I'm sure we all would.
I mean, let's be fair. We've seen certain animes. There's certain fans of this type of character.
So, where do you find the inspiration for your character?
Let me see. Honestly, I typically I go through the different classes and races. Okay, what do I feel like first? And then I would go and see, okay, what sort of archetypes are out there, and how can I either push them a little bit outside the box or just turn it around entirely and see how fun it would be to act them. Because I tend to put it all in the perspective of I try to break out the box of mechanically inclined, but I'm trying to do that by going more towards, sure, you can do that, have fun with that, but how would they act, and what story can you make behind that? Lynn has a lot of the typical archetypes when we get into that, but at the same time, just with her voice and the other side, which hasn't been revealed yet, I just like to take the opportunity. It's okay, have that in mind, have that voice. How can you go from there? What sort of backstory? And that honestly takes me the longest part because I want it to be fleshed out, but not too much to put on the GM. If that makes any sense. I don't even know. I'm gonna have to finish my drink because I'm rambling.
I mean, that was a pretty good answer. I understood. I followed. When you initially designed your character, and of course this might be a little different for you because, of course, much like Rodeo, you were still new.
Mm.
were there any paths now that maybe you found that you might stray away from, or you won't be able to do? What, once again, throw me into the bus. That the setting just doesn't work for you, or you don't like, or maybe you don't see them going that way.
For potential paths, backstory wise, would be like most obvious one would be Rogue, and honestly would be a good dichotomy against Aeson, considering both are brought together as like two sides of a coin and everything, which might be explored. And with World, it wasn't really much of a factor, aside from the fact that I myself didn't get much of a chance to listen to the podcast at that point, so didn't realize then that we had another bard.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Well, hey, and see, here is the beautiful part, and this is, I was talking to Charity Winter the other day, and she was like, "That's going to be interesting." I'm like, "Yes, I know. I'm so excited." And she looks at me. She's like, "Why?" I was like, "Think about it. Two bards of different types in the game. They could run with each other and kind of play off of those characters. While one is telling a story or playing music, the other one is creating atmosphere or really helping that character. Meanwhile, they can share every bit of their information between two basic specializations when like gathering information, when thinking of things that they find randomly, or even if it's just like a simple knowledge roll. There could be this a kind of a combination of a relationship there without it becoming physical, but it's like a mental best friend kind of, you work with me, I work with you kind of.
Oh, definitely, because like especially after I realized that, I just like, wait, we're completely different schools and completely different backgrounds as well. And after I realized that, I just like, this could be a great thing to work off of. We both love our stories. We both love things that are told. How we use it, though.
There's just so much to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I ask a quick question to Sam?
Yeah.
Because I forgot. What college did you go with for Lynn again?
Whispers.
Okay. And Blue, what'd you go with for Zachariah?
I went with lore.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like opposite.
Complete opposites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. We both like our tales, but we like to do different things with them.
Not the way I would have put it, but I think that perfectly meshes that.
Yeah. Who would you say particularly interests you? Because I know you've listened in to a little bit of Group 1 and you're getting caught up a little bit. Is there anybody from Group 1 that you're really enjoying, and anybody from Group 2 that you're really enjoying as well?
For Group 1, I'm honestly really interested to see how things with Charity goes, and just the general demeanor, the matronly sort of thing, the general calm about her, somehow able to keep them together, especially with Sebastian being how he is, and just generally as a whole, she seems like the cohesive glue of the other bunch, and to see how her own personal story takes place and how that might affect the group dynamic, then just me. And for Group 2, sorry, Tangled, it's definitely Mila. I'm sorry, I want to hug her every time.
Do I win a prize? Like,
You win our
You
eternal
win
love
the
and
most
emotion.
interesting character award. I will maybe have it drawn up for you.
Your prize is a death flag.
Oh god.
Oh, that's not no.
No.
I don't pull punches. I will state that completely. I think we all know that I don't, do anything behind the scenes to mess with roles. I don't pull punches. If people get hurt, they get hurt. So
You bet they do.
No
it's
one
a
I
possibility.
I mean, I would think less of you as a DM if you like did that. Like, so
Like,
I just don't feel that it's fair for people.
no, it's not.
do that if you have to, but make it count, make it stick, make it interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to throw something in there too that I forgot to say earlier. I do have a bias towards Lynn's character because we came in together. So big shout outs to Lynn's, and I think as that character is more expounded upon, it's going to get even better.
Oh God, I don't like praise. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, how are you dealing with it? Huh?
How about NPCs? Are there any that in general that you enjoy or you maybe want to meet later on as your character?
My initial thought is Cole, because especially after listening in on him, especially after not knowing as much about his backstory during the tryouts. So definitely like learning more about him, especially with our initial interactions in game. And like aside from obvious ones of those we've typically seen more often in the podcast and everything, I want to meet the blacksmith and his little daughter.
Oh, I've gotten
Oh!
so many compliments and words about those two.
I'm sorry,
Oh my god, I forgot about them.
they're so cute.
I feel so terrible. How dare I? Oh,
They're just the cutest thing.
I know, it's so cute.
Well, I mean, they are still in the world. There is still a possibility that you guys might visit, and maybe you'll run into them. So there is always that. So always be hopeful.
I hope so.
So, and this one might also this question as well might also not be as in depth. Do you feel that your character has grown? Do you feel your character and I'm gonna word this differently just because I don't want you to lose out on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that your character, when you had created them and versus playing them for the first time, do you feel that they either grew or changed when you first actually started? Okay, I'm playing now. Well, that wasn't what I expected, but I like it.
I mean, definitely when you go from initial draft concept to the first live take, especially like I didn't know exactly what voice to do for her, so I took sort of an example from. I was fortunate enough to play another actual full drow character in an Undermountain campaign. One I wanted to do for a while, a drow cleric at Elistri, the one good deity for the drow. And she had a similar chippy, bubbly attitude to her voice, and was like, okay, that's a good backdrop for it, so let's tweak it a bit. And after initially doing that, I was like, let's modify that a bit, because she has that extra bit of depth to her, and that is definitely going to come up later on, because I don't want to spoil it too much. So definitely has been a growth in that regard, but in terms of her own personality, it remains to be seen.
Okay. Is there any place in the world that you feel like Lynn might really enjoy visiting or might gravitate towards?
I actually have to pull up the map for a second just to make sure after the initial it was asked the first time. She would definitely want to visit Peace. Just that one place in the world where all is just calm.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Talalia is a big place, and even for the $1, I put out a copy of the world. Up near the very top, you'll find a place known as Trigus that is in quote unquote the land of peace, and above that is the grave of war. In Peace, some of the lore here is that it was part of the Great War with the three Titans. And now the biggest idea there is that they don't want weapons, they don't want swords, they don't want murder, they don't want anything. So it's highly, how do I put it? Highly unlikely and highly unwanted for you to attack or anything like that somebody else in the world. Now, of course, there is the dangers of, animals, bears, and such. But for the most part, it's a peaceful land. So that I like that answer. That would be cool. I don't think we've had a chance really for anybody to kind of go there. So I'd have to say I'm excited for that too.
Like it'd be especially like for a bard, it'd be a perfect opportunity to get a feel of the land and see what sort of stories you can make, what sort of songs you can write about the tales about the events that happened there.
Oh yeah, and imagine going into the grave of,
Oh, especially.
and it's just like this huge open land of like where it first everything went down. You know, the random things that you could find, the stories maybe that are on headstones, because there are headstones of people there. All right. Is there an aspect of yourself as the player that tends to come out in your character that you either enjoy or maybe you don't tend to enjoy so much?
For like, I haven't been playing for as long, like 8 months at this point, and D&D 5e as a whole, and in fact as entirely. But I've noticed with a lot of the characters I make, my aggression, my anger, my over emotional state, which is somewhat good for a barbarian, but not so good when you're a paladin and you have a bad run and it just comes out. Like, I've been trying to work on that, but as a whole, as a monk, it comes out. As a paladin, it comes out. As a sorcerer, it comes out. It is not a nice thing to see sometimes, but I try to work it in some capacity and apologize so profusely afterwards. It's one thing that I'm not proud of with my characters. It can make them interesting, but
So, is there, and you said you haven't been playing long, is there a moment of enjoyment that you had with a game or some other tabletop game that you just love to recollect, like just like everybody else?
I will honestly say, and it goes back to everything Tangled and you mentioned before, the moment a DM, like, I have a good DM this is homebrew campaign that we've been with for a while, and twice now he has made me flat out cry, and the circumstances surrounding it I loved to death because it drew me so much into the story, into the character, and into her backstory. It made me regret the choices I made. It made me reflect on how to make her better. It opened up chinks in her armor that was like, okay, this was your breaking point. Because most recent point, and especially so strong. If there's a time to go into it, I'm sorry.
No, if you got something, go ahead.
It was the most recent thing that happened, most recent session with that group, with that same group and the same DM. Because apparently it led up to the point in which this the half-elf barbarian girl, very headstrong, means the best, but lets her emotions get the better of her. So it's like, it's not just overall rage, it's just her entirety of her emotions are enhanced. And there was this one major combat session in which we're trying to seal off this portal before this invading force gets in, and two of the remaining individuals are harassing my party. So at this point, it's like, go all in, draw their attention, take them down, let all the anger and emotion overwhelm, and strike out. And only after the first one goes down does it realize that's one of her family members. They were under their control, and she lost entirety of her emotion into that moment. They barely kept her alive. And after everything, this is the best part. The DM gave me this great magic item, but he put a caveat on it, in which there is a permanent madness that says, you're the best, the strongest, the fastest, the smartest, the most beautiful. That one that gives a lot of leeway, but if you roleplay it well, it could be a chink into the group's dynamic. So, and before getting that, she was emotional, she was happy, but she would doubt herself a lot, especially after a lot of her prior failures. So after getting that, she had to hide that hesitation. So after realizing she almost killed her family, barely alive, holding her family's barely breathing body, slowly just walking on the battlefield, tears rolling down her face, going, I can do this. I can do this. It's all right. Everything will be good. Just, and I'm literally crying because of the emotion in that moment. And I love that. It hurts, and I enjoy it because of that.
Well, I do hope that I can bring that to you guys. It's not gonna be easy. I'll tell you that much.
I'm sorry.
That's not gonna be hard to top.
I'm sorry. I just had to go through the whole thing in my mind.
I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Did you say half elf barbarian?
Yes.
Nice. That was what my first Roll20 character that I played was a half elf barbarian.
Mine was a barbarian.
Wait.
Okay. Let's see. We're almost rolling on 2 hours, so let's
Yeah. Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
If Group 2 cross paths with Group 1, is there a character in which you think Lynn might be interested in meeting or might get along best with?
With initial impressions, she would get along well with Maggie, but might tire of her childishness after a while, and would heavily gravitate more towards Charity because her calm demeanor, her motherly ways, it would impact on Lynn due to her lack of it as a child. However, Charity might look down upon Lynn's own ways at times, so if that does happen, that'd be interesting to see.
And I mean, there's always, and you know, even now, there is always, because your guys' actions completely is introduced to the story at the same time. There is always that chance that Group 2 might run into Group 1, and it might even be sooner than I'd anticipated. So that will be interesting. I will say this: at some point, in some way in the story, this could very well come to fruition, and I highly expect it to. What is one class or subclass you've never played but are interested in?
Arcane Trickster Rogue. I've always wanted to, but never got the chance to.
That is interesting that it came out so quick, and I like it.
Because I was like, how many times am I going to get to? But like with Blue, I tend to be the filler.
Okay. Does being a low-level character affect how you process things, or would do certain things?
Definitely, because you definitely have to assess it far more strictly. It's like you can't take as many risks. You have to manage resources far more carefully. And I'm not as used to playing spellcasting classes, so this is especially going to be a decent challenge for me.
Okay. 2 more questions, and then we'll give a couple minutes if you guys have any towards me, and we'll go through those. If you had to stick to a race or a class for the rest of your life while playing D&D, what do you think that would be?
I'm gonna have to go with the one I never played, Arcane Trickster, half-elf Arcane Trickster. Just because the sheer versatility with them.
Now I gotta ask, what if you played it and didn't like it?
Then I guess that'd be my mistake.
Risky business, but I gotta respect that.
Risk it for the biscuit.
I mean, I have a general feeling I would enjoy it, but if not, so be it.
And last question. If put to the choice, would you choose a course of action that would get your character potentially killed if it matched the character's thoughts and ambitions, or would you hold them back?
I'm gonna be in the maybe camp as well, because like I've already spieled on before. I love getting into the role, love putting my emotion into it. I'm an actor at heart. I love getting into it, but it also makes it so that while you want to fulfill the role with it, it makes it really hard to not want to lose them. So it's like I have to like force myself in those moments. It's like, and like fortunately at this point in the games I had, what short time I've had, that hasn't become much of an option, except for one time against a red dragonling. But I would honestly have to reinforce that upon myself at that point. Is like, you may not like it, you may not enjoy it, but fuck it, let's have fun with it. Go out in the blaze of glory and do what's best for the rest of the group.
All right. Well, I think it's about that time that we open up questions. If you don't have any, the Discord has provided me with a couple.
There's one on there that I put down, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be saved for a later date.
Yeah. Feel free to fire them off. I'm going to go ahead and post some in the game chat. I know later we might be doing another question and answer with Group 1, so we're definitely not going to get to all of them, and we might not even get to all of your guys' questions. But feel free to shoot a couple, and I'll let you know when it's time.
I do have a question that I had posted that I was really interested in, just for viewers' sakes and my own role-playing sakes. Could we all describe what our characters look like? Like, so I know we all do because we all have pictures and general knowledge, but a lot of the players or the watchers won't have any idea. They'll just be going off of their imagination. It's nice to give them a supplement. So, I mean, I can start. Aeson is a pretty tall, 6'1", 6'2", muscular half elf with like auburn hair and green eyes. He right now is wearing usually fancy green clothes, and when he's armored, it's chainmail. He has a very nice looking longsword and a shield with him. He carries himself in a very elegant royal manner, and pretty much that's all you need to know about him. All his hair, he keeps it close and high and tight, longer on the top.
I guess considering that Aeson and Lynn came at the same time, to chance to like describe ourselves at that point. Lynn is a generally lithe half-elf drow. Doesn't exactly have the pointed ears typically, but that's more offset by her ashen gray skin and piercing yellow eyes. Typically wears a somewhat loose-fitting coat on her with interior pockets for books and everything. Generally carries herself more as an entertainer in certain respects, and her clothing styles reflect that. It's not extravagant, but just enough to like draw the bit of attention that shows just enough worth, and generally has a "try me love" attitude.
I've also noticed the slight kind of scars that she's got, kind of like around the chin or the bridge of the nose.
Yeah, that especially helped with the background on that. That's, yeah, she's lived not a rough life, but her background with her father somewhat reflects that it wasn't exactly cut and dry. It wasn't exactly easy. She's like, as a general bit of background as well, it was, I think in the last episode it was mentioned whether she would know from the college. She learned everything from her father. She didn't go to the part of college.
And fan favorite Mila.
So Mila, she's about, I would say, I think like I said 5'10" in the past. She's fairly young. Looking dark hair. That's always kind of pulled up into like little fancy updo. Her ears always kind of like peek out beneath her hair, and she's in rather fancy noble clothes. The dress is mostly of like dark grays and greens. And I never mentioned it, but she does have an arcane focus that she wears as a bracelet. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before.
Okay, and Zachariah?
So Zachariah is 27 years old, with some minor scarring towards the eye and really calloused hands from former lives that he's lived before becoming a traveler. He has red hair with certain blonde streaks through it at certain points. And Zachariah is about average height for a man. Other than that, you can find him in a variety of clothes and being very well suited for many different situations. The most notable pieces of equipment that he keeps on himself being an old long lute on his back that makes a nice bassy sound to it, and a kind of like a little small pouch onto his side, onto his belt, that he keeps a flute with him that's able to retract and extend to suit for different needs and for like combat or for sounding nice.
I personally really find his hair interesting with the because there are streaks of a little bit lighterness, and his beard and it's like a goatee that I guess it's not even a goatee. It's like a full on beard that's been shaped really well.
Yeah.
It's very finely kept. Although there is one add-on that I always picture him with that's not particularly in his photo.
Mm-hmm.
Is like I picture his hair being a little bit longer and maybe a small, maybe 1 inch ponytail near the back.
I picture that too.
Same, actually.
Really? I've not actually thought of that. I'd have to see it.
I don't know what it is. It just seemed like you would have that.
It matches the personality. It brings more of a depth of a person who really enjoys the look of being able to have several looks, especially with a bard. You could do so much more with longer hair than shorter hair.
True. That's all true in that, and especially despite his hair, he does have a soul, because apparently someone thought he didn't have one.
Hey, I make the comment one time as a joke. I have you know, I am engaged to a redhead, so any comments I make are not biased.
Sorry, didn't mean like that.
Hey, Corey, I got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
What was the hardest part about making the world the characters now play in?
Oh, wow. The hardest part was me not putting myself down and realizing that as many people as gets put into it, as many backstories that are really amazing, that I can live up to that. Because there are times as a DM, I get sent things that I'm like, I never would have thought of that. Like, and then I start questioning, is the world deep enough? Do I put enough story in there? Do I have enough to get people interested in? And I question myself a lot too, especially when I'm playing like even playing a D&D game with somebody else, or maybe I'm playing a video game, and I'm just like, wow, there's so much intrigue with the state capital and the way the government works, and this and that, and this and that. I'm just like, Talalia has a little bit of that, but not in depth. And I'm like, this exists, but not in depth, and this exists. And I'm like, do I really have something that people enjoy playing? Is this that, or people just being nice? And the biggest thing is remembering that I try my best, and for me that's enough.
I mean, I enjoy playing this world much.
I've enjoyed listening as well, and especially getting a chance to play into it.
probably the favorite world that I've ever played in my 10 years of D&D.
Oh, thank you.
And like also from the perspective of one who's like, I would like to get this world I have as well, just down on paper. The fact you're able to get it out, present it to the people after working it for so long, the fact that you also find these little points that you think you can work on, that's a good thing. That's not something to be afraid of. That's something to like, that is something I could do better, and never deny that of yourself.
It's always growing, and with every new player that comes in, a new tale is been spun, new NPCs are born, and I take credit that I've built it, but really anybody who's played in the world has helped. And I feel bad because I'm like, this should be something that I've made, but at the same time I take pride in those who have played and have brought NPCs, who have brought stories and has enriched the world. So really, I say I've made it, but it's not.
No, it's a similar thing with a lot of different mediums, with a lot of different stories that we know. They also draw inspiration from those who affected them. That's not. Yeah, I understand, especially, but that's just something to like appreciate, and I will do well by you by introducing this.
But honestly, though, that was something I wanted to add in before as well. When you were asked about the biggest tip that you could give as a DM, is that to not be afraid to steal. Like, just take whatever you can and add on to the world. And that's something that applies to that very much. Because while you're taking it from other people and getting inspiration from them, it's still you.
Yeah, like don't be afraid of stereotypes sometimes. Just add a little something of yourself in there.
You at least press the keys to put it in there.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is even with stealing, like my entire life when growing up, the Sword and the Stone, Excalibur, and of course, King Arthur and Merlin, those were some of my biggest influences. Like I loved that story, and I've read dozens of different tales and stuff like this. And for me, the Trius Blade, the High King, and all of that are kind of my representation of the lore. And though it might seem kind of a bit of stealing, I've switched it in a way that I enjoy, and I feel like it makes a lot of enjoyment for people.
Oh,
so
definitely.
Like you said, yes, do not be afraid. Yeah.
One advice I've been given, like in my writing, is good authors borrow, great authors steal. So, yeah.
So I do have a question for you though as well. I was just generally, since I don't think much of the other places have been talked about, because you've talked about many different continents and stuff like that, been breaking off. What are the names of these continents? And like a little, like a small description, like it's kind of like Japan or something like that. Or is it something to be saved for later?
I can go ahead and give the names. It's not going to hurt anything. It's pretty much general knowledge. Talalia is the main con. It is the biggest, the most well-known, and of course, it's the biggest. Claude being second. Claude is a place of just interesting lore. It's got so much going on, and for the most part, it's unadventured. So it's like the West, the Great West of going over and still learning things. There are, of course, kingdoms and stuff, but it's not really too interesting. Not too interesting, but too in depth so far because nobody's gone there. It's also got a great bit of kind of culture because it is Japan, China. It is all those places wrapped up in one. I've taken kind of the interest in those cultures that I enjoy, the things that I've read and everything like that, and taken some similarities from those cultures and added it to Claude. So there are samurais in the world. That's a thing. They exist. If you're really interested in that. We have Goldcrest, which is really interesting. A few years ago, maybe about 5 in your guys' timelines, it kind of had as if California is about to split off, but there is actually their own kind of California that is split from the main continent. It has separated itself. It's not far enough away that we can call it something different. But there's so much going on there because we've got you get Duskwood, Riverwatch, you've got Roseglade, interesting things. Madlock, which has been happily named the Land of Monsters, which is also another big place where slave trade has yet to be outlawed. So that is a big thing there, and they make a crap ton of money off of that, and they just it's hard to get government to help. There is Glacia, and Glacia has a very interesting story. One, it's kind of like our Antarctica, but it was the original landing site of the huge meteor that brought the Titan metal. There was this really large impact around that area that basically, like us, it killed a good bit of anything that was still living, and kind of restarted everything. This huge crater of like 6-7 kingdoms. If you took Graydon 6 times over and spanned it out, it would still not touch the amount of what this huge thing brought. And of course, that was stripped to pieces and pulled apart and eventually became the Titans. And then just in there, you've got the one town that seems to be stubborn enough to live in such a harsh climate known as Graydon. And then, of course, there is the potential 6th continent, which nobody knows exists or not, potentially, which really hasn't been named. Nobody knows anything about it. And most whisper it's just the 6th. That's how it's known.
Sounds like we should go there and colonize it.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh,
What's
Westmarch.
going to name
Find
it?
Do it.
Oh.
I claim this land, Lynn.
Thousands of adventurers have tried, and thousands have died.
Ooh, boy.
Have fun, Lynn.
I actually really like the question. If you could rank the classes in Talalia and this world in general from most common to most rare.
Ooh, that's a lot. Most common would probably be fighter, and just because it generally, with the way that people grow up, with the way the world has its workings and the way that everything works together, those are the most that are prominent because they are the easiest. Well, not even the easiest. They are the most learned through backstories and the way it all lays out. Paladin would have to be the rarest, only because your god has to choose you as basically you are my hand, you are my person who takes my information, who takes my word and spreads it to others, and I choose you. You are righteous. You know this. You know what you do, and I trust you. And it's not often that somebody comes and does that. Now, of course, then there are the wizards. There are sorcerers. Those are probably the second in line. They have been growing in number thanks to the Bardic College of Greenwood, which is just new. It's probably spanned maybe only 20 years, but it has a rich 20 years of teachers and students and those who have learned. They don't just teach wizards and sorcerers. They teach druids, which are nomadic people, but they have a different way and style of teaching those people. That you come, you grab a book, maybe you take a class, and then you leave. You don't have to stay. Come back when you're ready. And just their biggest thing is learning. And then from there, you deal with artificers, which are still slightly popping up, almost unheard of. You have your wizard styles of necromancers, which is dark magic. They are also very rare, but they exist in the world. They're a lot of other ones. Let's take, for example, druids. Druids are probably just under wizards, probably because those wilds are hard. You've got to deal with owl bears, you got to deal with regular bears. I mean, look at Group 1, Episode 1, they had to deal with the Maybelline bear.
Oh god.
The wilds are not easy, and that's something that Group 1, everybody deals with in Talalia, because those wilds, though everybody sees it as like, oh, we're just taking a stroll, every day you guys risk running up against something that you guys can't take, because not everything is scaled to you. If I missed some, I apologize. I don't know all of them by heart. I think I covered the bases.
Warlock, Bard,
Bards are
Barbarians.
Yes, barbarians. I would say they're probably on the same level as wizards and stuff. Barbarians are a little bit less common because as the world becomes more and more known of towns and stuff like that, the tribes of barbarians, the basic, I'm going to beat, eat, and kill things day in, day out away from civilization. I grew up in the wilds. Those are becoming less and less.
Mm-hmm.
They were a major part of the Great War back when, all three races were against each other. Bards are quickly growing. I would probably put them up at around the same level as the wizards and all those, because now that the Bardic College is growing, they also are getting more and more. I mean, if we look at some of royals are taking a very big liking to bards, because it teaches them about royalty, it teaches them about stories of the world, it teaches them to be somebody who has all this knowledge to grow and learn from. So the Bardic College is probably somewhere most places would send at least a prince or a princess looking to take control. Warlocks are interesting. I would say they're a little bit more rare. Not necessarily paladin rare, but they've made a deal with a deity or some sort of patron of power. And in my world, though the gods still exist, they're less likely to go, oh, I know you, I'm going to help. Because there's still that thick separation between the mortal realm and the god realm, as well as, the celestial, the demon. They're thicker walls than normally in a D&D campaign. So for those, warlocks who gain their power from a specific patron, it's rarer because those patrons actually have to reach out and go, I want you. You're mine.
I was honestly thinking earlier about how would a warlock fit in with your world, and like, I love mythology, and the first thing I went to was like, how would Nyx fit into this? Like, literally the mother of titans as well.
She has been banished in lore.
Ooh.
She has come up against, and this is a story in game that you guys might. There is lore to all of that. I don't want to give too much away because you guys might actually find some of the stuff. But she has existed. She has been banished. There has been a lot going on that even made that possible. There are stories behind that. There are stories behind, pretty much why the gods typically stray away from speaking to people or helping them. And that all might come across in game.
I'm excited to find out.
I accidentally struck upon his treasure trove. This is interesting.
This is all very exciting as a player. There's so much untapped potential.
There is, and I
not you untapped, but untapped for us. We're just sitting there waiting, chomping at the bit to find out as much as we can.
To strike oil.
and for some DMs who are starting out, and I will say this because I needed to hear this when I was first starting out. There will be times when players do not find things that you want them to find. There will be times where you might want to touch on something, but you can't. Do not fret. Over time, at some point or another, they will find it. And don't stress if they don't. Don't force it either. That's the worst thing that you can do, is don't force it. Once you force it, it takes away all of the greatness. Yeah. If that's everything, guys, I think we should go ahead and end that there. We've been doing this for almost about 2 hours now.
2 hours.
Wow.
We actually started early for once.
It's been a good 2 hours though.